friends at Tivoli Brewing Company and the Department of Communication Arts and Sciences at MSU Denver, this is Unfiltered. And here are your hosts, Jay Schrader and Dr. Samuel J.
Nakedness is encouraged.
Nakedness is
Do you have
encouraged,
pants
but
on?
you gotta,
Right now I do.
Okay.
But I don't know how long you guys take.
Exactly, right?
Anything could happen after a couple beers.
How many beers in?
I've already
do we
worked a
get?
full 8-hour shift, so I'm ready to take my pants
Yeah,
off.
I think I rolled in at
Nice.
4:30
Yeah,
this morning.
That's my general rule. About 10 hours, and then the pants come off.
That's where it is. Jay.
It's not a long brew day.
No, exactly. Where are we, buddy?
Burly Brewing Company.
Burly Brewing, my favorite logo thus far of
Yeah.
all the breweries.
Thanks, guys.
So we'll get into that. Did you come up with that, Jorge?
I did. There's a good story behind it.
Okay.
Did
all right,
you
we're
just
gonna
call him Jorge?
I did. Yes.
He did
yes.
say Jorge.
We're
what
just
everybody
going
calls me.
right into it.
Well, we tried to go to the Mexican lager place off Broadway. We had to reschedule, so might as well.
Here we are.
Yeah, we're gonna try to add some culture.
That was not.
Yes.
It's not a Mexican lager
It's
place.
not, no? Okay.
Whatever
It's-
they're brewing over there
They're
is.
corn beer. Corn beer.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It is the key ingredient to Mexican lager.
See, there you go. Now we got the brewer telling us. We are at Burly Brewing
Company. Castle
which
Rock
is
CO.
You two. I'll let one of you answer this next question. What is the address?
680 Atchison Way, Suite 800, Castle Rock, Colorado, 80109.
So if you're coming from the north, you exit
Wolfensberger,
Wolfensberger,
which is the exit after the outlet mall's exit.
Oh yeah. Okay. There's nothing in between there. There's a big gap,
Yeah,
but there's
there's-
nothing in
There
between
should be a
there.
whole nother exit.
There
and
should
just
be.
Isn't.
There
They just skipped that number. It
Isn't,
goes
right?
184, 182.
To right there. I'm going to move that a little close to you, Reno.
yeah,
there we
sorry.
go. Okay. No, you're fine. You're
A little
fine.
too far away.
So Wolfensberger is
Just
just
do it like this.
Yeah, you're fine.
Just
okay.
eat it. Eat the
Yeah.
So
mic.
if you exit
Jig
the
is
highway and you go to the east, you're going to be on Wilcox, which is what goes downtown. But
Okay.
if you go to the west, it's Wolfensberger,
Yes.
and that'll bring you right here.
Is 105 West over here too?
Yep, there's
They're-
about
yeah, they're-
7/10 of a mile.
Right
They were they
Okay.
were
To
what
our
the right
northwest.
turn instead of the left.
Yep, so as
Yeah.
you're coming off the highway, you'll go past Caprice. That's
Okay.
the first light. Second light is Park.
Okay.
You turn right, you'll go to theirs. If you go to the third light, take a left, you'll come to us.
There you go.
Perfect.
And this place is big, Jay.
Dude.
I mean, there's a lot going on back there. We got a lot of tanks. We'll have to get a tour after
A lot
this.
of wood in this place too.
So we'll let you two introduce yourself since one of you just talked. Actually, both of you just talked.
Who are we
Reno,
talking to?
Who are we talking to?
My name is Reno Wilson.
Okay.
And I am the head brewer here at
Not Rain Wilson.
Not Rain. Not
Okay.
Rain. I do live in awe of his comedic skills.
Do you have a beet farm?
I do not. I wish I did. Beet beer. Maybe I should try that.
Don't.
Don't. He says don't. He says don't.
An unnamed brewer that I know tried to get me to.
Oh,
Just don't.
just don't. Okay.
All right. Well, lesson learned.
Yeah.
Now I don't
Thanks.
have to try.
Yeah,
Now I
don't
have
even
to try
bother.
myself. Yeah,
George,
exactly.
don't let him. Yeah.
No, Reno
say no.
Wilson. Reno Wilson is my name, just like the little city in Nevada.
Okay.
I'm the head brewer here at Burly Brewing Company.
All right. All right. How long have you been here?
I've been here since before we opened. When I walked in, there was nothing from wall to wall, and trenches had just been cut for plumbing.
Nice.
So I've been here since day one. I was not the head brewer when we started.
Okay.
A man was the head brewer before me. He has since moved on,
Okay.
and I've taken the reins in the last 6 months.
And crushed it.
Crushed it.
I appreciate that,
Just
George.
destroyed it. I love it. What's your name? Because you're talking a lot over there.
My name's George Goodman, a.k.a. Jorge, I guess. I am the primary owner,
Okay.
and I have a few friends that have invested in this with me, but I'm the primary.
Okay.
And this has been a dream of mine for many years.
So you had mentioned to Jay and I before we started recording that the beer that you're drinking won some awards. So I'm assuming you've been a home brewer for a while.
Mm-hmm.
When did you get started?
I lived in Dallas, and my neighbor, Lee
Just a
Pelfrey,
little bit. There we go.
my friend Lee Pelfrey, my neighbor in Dallas, I met him and started homebrewing with him out of his garage.
Okay.
He'd already skipped past the extract and gone straight to all grain, so that's all I ever learned,
Nice.
which was nice. Got to bypass one step. And he moved to Austin, I moved here, and right before he moved, I made sure I bought all my own equipment so I could continue the tradition and do it myself.
Okay.
And the very first year I ever was homebrewing, I made this Oktoberfest, the same recipe, and entered it in the Blue Bonnet Brew Off. Mm-hmm. And this was pre-2015, before the style guidelines changed.
Okay.
So back then it was category 3 that had Martins and Oktoberfest and 2 other beers. I can't remember what's in it, but
Okay.
I won that category at Blue Bonnet Brew Off 2 years in a row with this beer.
Before you even had a brewery. before you'd even designed Burly, before there were trenches or anything else.
Burly wasn't even an idea
you
in my
were
mind.
You were already winning beer contests.
Yeah, and my neighbor Lee, still a good friend of mine, love the guy.
Yeah.
Probably my best friend. Anyway, he's like, you asshole, I've been doing this for years, I've never won anything.
I was going to
So,
say, he's got to be a little pissed.
Yeah, but I am an eye doctor. That's my profession. Still have that job, and cleanliness is just, hygiene.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always had, I think, impeccable hygiene just because I think that way. I'm always nervous about a beer being skunky, and I've yet to personally brew a batch of beer that I had to dump.
So you drink a lot of pumpkin beer, Jay, and pumpkin
do?
spice lattes. So
Spice latte.
You know what? I
What do you-
resisted the temptation to buy a PSL on Sunday.
what do you think of this bad boy?
I think this is a hell of a Marzen. I am a big Marzen fan, an Oktoberfest fan. This one's going to make the list for the family Oktoberfest we're having in 2 weeks. So, and that's just halfway through it. But
Well, we did something a little different with this one, if you don't mind.
yeah, tell us, because I've had a couple this week already. It's only Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
Well,
I mean,
Every,
better than Monday.
everybody's got their own kind of favorite slant on this. Some people like the spicy. I prefer it malty sweet.
Okay,
That's just, cloying, if you will.
Yeah,
yeah.
I just like that.
I wouldn't go. I mean, I wouldn't say you're too sweet either. I mean, it's
No.
not a dessert beer. It's not
No.
it's not a pumpkin chocolate
There's
bullshit.
no breakfast cereal in there.
But
It's,
I
just,
have-
it's
Yeah.
just grains.
Yeah.
I've brewed this beer at home multiple times since I moved here, and I've never been able to recreate what I was able to do when we were living in Dallas.
Really?
So what we did for this batch is we actually did our water chemistry to be Plano, Texas water. And
What does
it's
that
delicious.
entail?
Well, Reno could speak to that a little bit more because he's the one that did the actual additions. But
That's where I
had
lived.
to research that to take our water, modify it to be that water.
Okay.
Because the batches I brewed there were the best I've ever made.
There's no stark difference between the water here in Castle Rock and there in Plano, Texas, which I'm a Texas boy. I used to live very close to Plano, Texas. I did my first couple of volunteer batches at the Gordon Biersch in Plano, Texas.
Where was that in Plano? 'Cause
It's just the north part of Plano, which is now the south part of Frisco.
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
all just urban
121
sprawl.
area,
It's-
yeah, okay.
right along 121.
Okay, gotcha.
At any rate, the biggest difference was a higher calcium content.
Okay.
So yeah, we upped our CaCl additions to our mash, and I think we get a lot crisper, cleaner taste out of the Oktoberfest than we did last year. We brewed this exact same recipe last year.
Without
only
the
change we
calcium.
made- yeah, without the extra calcium.
Okay.
Okay.
And we always try to balance for what calcium we want for yeast health. In this case, we just upped it a little bit, and I think we get a little residual crisp and cleanness that we didn't have last year.
So when my wife gives me shit about not having a glass of milk, is the additional calcium in here? Is that gonna?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah,
Perfect.
Yeah. Just make sure you get out in
Dude.
the sun.
No,
Get that
you're
I get
vitamin D.
yeah. This face does not need to go in the sun.
no.
I
It's
got
a bath.
Yeah.
that's so what's your
Never
relationship
gonna
to the sweet nectar that is beer? I mean, we've got George's. What's
Sure.
your
Yeah,
background?
I homebrewed for a dozen years, and
Okay.
I started my professional career in heavy manufacturing. I worked in Denton at Peterbilt, Class 7 and 8 trucks.
Okay.
I say I built those trucks, but I didn't really. I managed people who did. And I was homebrewing the whole time.
Okay.
Alton Brown taught me how to homebrew. He did an episode of Good Eats in which
Yeah.
he says, "This is how you homebrew." And I've since learned that amongst all the good things that Alton Brown does, brewing beer is just not one of them.
Noted.
I modified very quickly after I learned how to brew from Alton Brown, but that was my first batch. My first batch was based on an episode of Good Eats.
Okay.
I homebrewed for a dozen years, always thinking, it'd be really cool to go brew beer professionally. I started that journey when I was still in Austin, Texas, a little brewery called Red Horn Coffeehouse and Brewing Company.
Okay.
They were in a similar situation that Burly was when I walked into Burly. A little more further along in their build out, they had a couple of front of the house positions left with some access to the brewing system.
Okay.
So I said, well, we're going to dive in here. And a couple years later, my wife wanted to move to Colorado, and when I stopped making money for a living and then decided to make beer instead, I also decided I got to follow her wherever she goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
She's in charge, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. I like to
always.
describe myself as a kept man, and I know that there's video over
Yeah,
there.
it's okay. It's
but
okay.
if you could save
Edit
yourself
that
from
out.
describing me, because I'm not the kind of man that women.
No,
usually
no, no, no.
You know, I come off of a series of conversations with brewers and brew type men recently that all strive to be kept men, and none of them have figured out how to do it. So maybe Reno will.
I have struck a perfect balance, and we were married for a long time before I started brewing.
Okay.
So it was a let's call it a family decision. It was a family decision.
She's putting up with a midlife crisis, is what it sounds like.
This is basically what our
that
project
came very
is.
early in my life.
Yeah. I bought a Jeep Wrangler and started a podcast, and that was. I just looked at my wife and I was like, if this is as bad as it gets, it's going to be pretty fun.
We get a lot of. You guys should drink more water. Well, this is,
Yeah.
This beer is 13.5% ABV, but it's still 93% water.
Do you hear that, honey?
And calcium.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm hydrating.
There's somewhat of a
And there's
midlife crisis story behind this place as well.
I figured,
hear it.
we should
Let's
really
hear
get
it.
back to that because
The short of it is, my dad and my granddad were both eye doctors. I grew up working in their office, so from the age of 14 forward,
Okay.
I've never not been in eye care.
Okay.
So when I hit
Wow.
49, which was 2 years ago, I what?
I'm just kidding.
So
I was going to say you
What-
were
yeah, what
70.
the hell was
Sorry.
that?
49 for me, it was kind of a hard thing because it's like, okay, you've been doing this for 35 years. So I told my wife I was thinking about quitting. She's like, why? You're so good at it. It's like, so that means I have to do this the rest of my life? So I basically resigned, trained my replacement, and was in retirement for 7 weeks. And my old office called me and asked me if I would come back. And I was like, thank God I made a mistake. And I went back.
Okay.
But it was during that time that the decision to move forward on this dream actually happened, because I thought, well, at some point I'm going to retire again.
Yeah.
And I want this to be what keeps me occupied. I want this to be my plaything.
So, okay. It's a plaything, George, but it's a really big, expensive plaything.
It is. I swung for the fence.
Okay.
I don't do anything
All
halfway.
right. What kind of, explain that process to us. You decided to go from home brewer to actually making a business of it. Who were you talking to? What kind of business planning were you doing? What was...
Oh my gosh, talked to everybody. I went to countless breweries, made notes, would ask questions like how many square footage, what's your barrel size?
Okay.
Anyone that would give me any information like production per year and startup cost. I did tons of research, read tons of articles, and everything about this place is, and I'm so anal, everything about this place was a formula to me.
Sure.
Like what square footage, how many barrels can I produce per square foot, what's the proper size brew house to put in, what's the proper number of fermenters.
Okay.
We started with a 2-barrel pilot and a 10-barrel, 2-vessel system and steam, and talked about the number of fermenters and dry tanks we wanted to have the balance, because 24 taps for a 10-barrel brew house was a pretty auspicious undertaking.
Sure.
And we're going to settle into fewer than that because that's just chaos. But it's been fun. We've swung for the fence. How many beers do you think we've made at this point? Almost 16 months in.
So yeah, we're 16 months in. We just brewed our 152nd batch of beer.
Okay.
And I would say probably 20% of those are repeats. So we're probably well over the 100 mark in different brands. We've scattershot a little bit. Just trying to be experimental, just trying to announce our presence a little bit and say, hey, you can always find something new here at Burly.
So what are you finding, I guess, you two having these conversations in terms of particular styles that you're enjoying making and you think you're going to stick with? It's now 16 months in. Are they starting to show their faces and be like, okay, we're good at that?
I'll let Reno take this.
Sure. Well, the cutting edge of beer brewing these days, if you're not making a hard seltzer, is New England style IPA, and we concentrate pretty heavily on New England style IPA. We spend a lot of money on hops. We spend a lot of money on fruit. We try to keep 4 or 5 of those on tap at all times. That said, you can also come in here and drink a crisp, clean, very traditional Oktoberfest. We do a South German style Hefeweizen. Not a lot of brewers in America are spending time to do ferulic acid rest to bring the clove out of a Hefeweizen.
Yeah.
But we take the time to do that. Both of those things are very important to us. To be on the cutting edge and to pay homage to the people who've come before us.
Right, for sure. I can listen to your vocabulary. So obviously you've studied this significantly. How does one? Obviously you were homebrewing and all of that, but there's a difference between. Was it homebrewing that took you out of Peterbilt and got you into the books to study this stuff?
Yeah, I'm a pretty scholastic guy as it goes. So when I started brewing, I also started reading. And when I met my first professional brewer and I said, "What books do I need to read?" He listed off a dozen books, and I was like, "Well, beat you there." So
you'd already read them?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'd already sought out that scholastic knowledge. That said, I am not a formulaic brewer. George is very formulaic in his design of this place, but I brew a lot more instinctually. I learned all the rules really early. I learned how to homebrew, and I thought I was pretty good at it. I was not a competition homebrewer. I never entered into a competition, but I learned all the rules really heavily so that when I got my shot, I knew which rules were safe to break.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's how I try to brew now.
So it's like we have the scientist and the artist almost.
It is. It kind of feels
You have
like
a left
that.
brain and a right brain.
Yeah,
that's nice.
which
Which is why it
like
works.
most marriages are like two lefts or two rights. So this seems no, I'm serious, right? I mean,
He
this
went
is
there.
this I did. It tends to go there pretty quickly, especially
It's cathartic for us guys.
especially the deeper into the week we get,
Yeah.
and the worse things are coming. The further things are coming off the tracks at home, it's easy to fall into that hole pretty quickly. But no, you guys obviously balance each other out, so that's pretty impressive. Science and art, really. I
I'll
mean,
tell
that's
you,
what it comes down to.
I came in with a very structured plan.
Yeah.
But I've also recognized his skill and given him a lot of free reign.
Yeah, a lot of rope to hang yourself with.
Well,
Yes.
That's the exact term. We
Yeah,
talked about
absolutely.
this
Yeah,
today, and the fact that there is a lot of rope, and he has. And what I said to that earlier today, as I said, well, you've tied a lot of nice knots. So
Was that hard for you to do?
yes, because I tend to be type A OCD control freak kind of person.
Okay.
Just kind
I
of.
try to come across more laid back, but I'm not.
Okay.
I'm
What
very
was the moment
analytical.
where you said, "Okay, I have to give him some more rope"? Was there a moment, or was it slow burn?
Before our original head brewer had left, I had tasked Reno with blowing my socks off with an IPA that was just over the top.
Okay.
I said, I want you to be ludicrous.
Okay.
Let's make something flavorful, wow.
Yeah.
Because our previous brewer is amazing, but he's kind of a safe brewer. I think that's a fair way to say it. Very
Okay.
traditional style guy. And I was trying to get Reno to color outside the box to create for us what I always envisioned as tasteful deviations.
Okay.
And he felt like a lot of pressure was on him, but he delivered. And it was what we now call our juice box beers, which is the moniker that we've given all of our hazy New Englands. And he made a peach fuzz juice box, which it was peaches and nectarines, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And it immediately became our best-selling beer, and he knocked it out of the park, and he's just done a series of those since. So my attitude is, I know him, I genuinely like him, I trust him, and he's never failed me. He's never given me any reason to give him pause or to put restraints on him. I mean, I look at it as, if I'm him, and I tend to be an empathetic guy, if I'm him, how do I want this to play? What kind of work environment do I want to be in?
Right.
And that's what I want, and I think I have created for him the latitude to go back there and go crazy.
That's awesome. How did you come up with this place? First off, Castle Rock, but also the location.
I live in Castle Rock.
Okay.
So, and the guys at 105 are good friends of mine.
Okay.
And I looked for 7 months to try to find real estate that was not Castle Rock. And I just couldn't.
Really?
I mean, I went as far north as, like, Inglewood, Littleton. I went over to Parker. I went over to Roxborough. Went south. And nothing made sense. And I found this location, the cost per square foot, 5,100 square feet.
Yeah.
It was perfect. And even before I even signed the lease, I went to the owner and told him, I said, look, I don't want to do this. It's not my plan, but this is my best shot. And I'm just going to give you the decency of telling you in advance. And then we went crazy, just turned it loose and designed everything specific for the space. We already had the relative formulas for everything we wanted to do, depending on how much square footage we were able to find.
Okay.
But the name came first. I was going on a dirt bike riding trip down to Pueblo with my boys. And the mission was, before we get home today, this place will have a name. And we just spitballed, just shot every name back and forth, laughed about some of them. It was like, oh, that's a turd, that's horrible, and shot it down, whatever. And I actually said Burly, and my boys, there was a pause, and they're like, oh, that's awesome. And for me, I like Burly because it's simple. It's eloquent. It embodies the Colorado rugged lifestyle, etc. I could just, you hear the name, you think plaid, flannel, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just kind of got
It
brewer.
is evocative.
yeah. So
It really
I
does create an image.
I thought it was the perfect name, and then the logo came later.
Okay.
So I kind of knew what I wanted. I wanted a beard and sunglasses, but what I ended up doing was, before I went to the graphic artist I was intending to work with,
No, you're good. I'm looking at this.
So what I did is I got online at a logobids.com website.
Oh, we've used that.
And put up a $250 cash prize, and basically designed verbally what I wanted. And I had 80 different artists from all over the world.
Wow.
Contribute designs. And the logo in its present form was the center portion of a little bit more busy, ornate, overly busy logo. And I had them strip everything else out and just focus on that. Mm-hmm. And it was perfect.
Yeah.
So I got them to sign a work for hire agreement.
Okay.
And then trademarked it because I love it. Our logo is everything to us. And
it's perfect.
I'm a little biased, but we sell a ton of merch. People love our logo. And if I put just the name Burly on something, it doesn't sell near as readily as if that logo's attached.
It probably doesn't carry the same weight, I imagine.
No, I don't know if it's the symmetry of the design. It's just cool. It just works. That's all I know to say. So the name and the logo, I just think is the perfect pairing.
So talk to us then, George, about what happens when I turn this logo over, because as we tried to, prior to recording, reach back and figure out who actually introduced George and Reno to Sam and Jay, all I recall is that the logo is really what sticks out of my mind, and the woman that I credit with connecting the dots was the first one to point out that your logo is has the ability to be inverted.
So cool.
Yeah. Well, it's not an exact inversion.
It's pretty fucking close, though.
It is. And
I have to think about it every time I do it.
That's Burly, and that's Girly. And Girly was born out of the need to have something to put on the bathroom door.
Oh.
So if you think ahead, I didn't want to have Burly on one and then just women on the other. So we tried to take the beard and turn it upside down and then just change the glasses, but then the mustache ended up looking like furrowed brow, like she was pissed off.
Yeah.
So we just took the mustache and slid it up and made it bangs.
Okay.
Took the beard, flipped it up, and then just went for the breakfast at Tiffany's kind of sunglass look.
I can see that now,
And
yes.
She was born.
Did your guy at logobids.com
No.
do that for you? Or?
Actually, this was mine.
Yeah,
I took the elements of this.
Played with it a little bit and made it work.
The graphic artist that I hired after we designed the
Gotcha.
logo on, because the idea was go there, spend a minimal amount of money, get a bunch of different ideas, and then show up on the doorstep of a graphic artist office and say, okay, I've already kind of weeded this down. This is kind of the direction I want to go. Make it easy for them, and then try to refine it. Well, by the time we showed up, we had a fully finalized logo, and then it's just an issue of, can we modify it? She tried to make some tweaks to it, and anything that she did to modify it made it worse. I'm like, just stop. It's perfect.
Yeah, I'll pay you whatever it takes to have you leave it alone at this point.
And then I verbally described what I wanted her to do with Girly, and then within one session of telling her and her sending it back to me and making one revision, we were done.
That's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, it's so. If I may,
go ahead,
Samuel.
You're good.
The Burly clearly, I think, resonates with beer drinkers. We joke a lot that there's not enough plaid and not enough beards in this industry, but at the same time, the Girly is the perfect balance. Again, left brain, right brain. I mean, you've got a rugged, handsome, bearded gentleman here, not too unlike Reno, who the more and more I look at him reminds me a lot of Nathaniel Rateliff. I've decided
it's because the hat.
Is it the hat? I couldn't decide if it was just the hat or if it was the hat and the beard.
When I was introduced to Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Swits, I was serving beer
like
in my old
physically
bar.
face to face, or
the first time I'd heard their music.
okay.
This bar regular was like, "Oh, I've been meaning to tell you, you're that son of a bitch guy." And I was like, "Sir, reel it in. This
you don't know me."
Yeah, we're not. I mean, you're a bar regular, but we're not friends.
Right.
You can't call me that.
Right.
No. And he pulls it up. They had just done Letterman.
Yeah.
And I was like, I do look like that.
Yeah, you really do actually. So
I've seen him live a couple times.
Really?
Good shows.
yeah,
Good
he's
shows.
he's a hell of a performer.
Yeah.
The thing though that I think Girly does is classes it up a little bit, right? I mean, she just I imagine a pretty classy gal there.
Yeah. Somebody wanted to drink
we
beer with.
believe that all beer is chick beer. You know?
Yeah.
So when we first released all of our Girly merchandise, you would have found on our menu that all the logos, all the Burly logos, were changed to Girly logos because we don't want to dictate to the women that want to drink craft beer. We don't want to dictate what kind of beer they should drink. All of that beer is for everybody that walks in our door.
Yeah.
As long as they're over 21 and they have a driver's license.
Perfect.
If you were going to use that, my wife was burlier than I was. when
Oh,
we met.
absolutely.
She was a stout drinker, the German, and I would drink the light beers, and then I've been won over to all beer styles at this point. But
I mean,
yeah, we don't. We don't ever pitch things or market things in any way to try to.
You're not looking to alienate. You're looking
No,
to.
hell
No,
no.
we want to be inclusive.
The opposite.
We want to be inclusive.
We're an
Has-
apolitical, inclusive, melting pot kind of brewery. That's what we want
It's
to
a
be.
very politically correct statement in this day and age. Thank
And
you.
Regardless of that, it's what we want.
No,
That's
the last
even
thing I
that's
want-
even better. Is actually when it's genuine and not
The
strictly
last thing
for.
I want is special interests of any kind in here. I don't care what you think.
Only
you're
thing we
welcome
want you to
here.
be interested in is beer.
Yeah, that's
And
the
you could-
common denominator.
So I want to before we get into kind of what's going on in these barrels behind us. You brought something up in terms of merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jay and I have been talking about this for a while. I've been thinking about it for a while. It seems like in this marketplace, merchandise, when you have a good logo, is this kind of, lost stream of revenue that a lot of breweries aren't taking advantage of. What made you go, oh, we have something here that we could put on a T-shirt? Was it the logo, or was it that always day one you knew you wanted to do merchandise?
I think it had more to do with just every time I would show somebody the logo,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say anything about it. I'd just open it up and show it to them. And that visceral reaction that people had to it, that, oh my God, that is so cool.
Yeah.
I just decided that coming out of the gate, I wanted to try to have a strong merch game. Because I look at merchandise as advertising.
Hell yes.
I mean, you can look at the margin on a beer, you look at the margin on a T-shirt, and it's wildly different.
Yeah.
So most people look at merch as it's kind of an additional nuisance. It's money tied up in something, and I'm looking at it as, no, that's an extension of my brand.
Yeah.
That's people taking our logo, our name, out into the marketplace and showing it off. And that's just marketing where I actually get to sell something, and they do that
Yeah,
for
you
me.
make money on the marketing.
Yes.
That's huge. How many times have you been out on a trip, vacation, whatever, and you see a beer hat or a T-shirt on somebody, and you're like, "What the hell? I've never heard of these guys." And the next thing I find myself doing is probably Googling them right there on the spot, saving the page, and then trying to find the beer. So I can imagine that the Burly beard has attracted quite the Google search.
And just as a side point, if your listeners are out there,
There we go,
in
sell it.
Burly
All
gear,
2 or 3 of them.
hashtag Where's Burly?
Where's Burly?
Oh.
Please.
So
let us
where's?
know.
How do I spell where's? Which one?
WHERES. Don't put the apostrophe in; it'll break your hashtag.
That will not work.
Let's just
What's
hashtag Where's
what's a
Burly.
hashtag?
You're kidding,
What's
right?
No.
Come on
You should get
now,
on board.
Jay.
He knows.
So how are you selling it? Are you doing Instagram? Or okay? Let me preface this. This brand, for some reason, I thought Burly had been around longer than 16
yeah,
months.
I would have thought so,
Y'all
too.
are out there everywhere, and I would assume it has a lot to do with the logo and the branding.
It does.
So how are you selling the product, aside from just in here?
In here.
Really? Okay.
To me, online sales are a completely separate business model.
Okay.
And I don't have the bandwidth to do it.
Yeah.
And people call me all the time, is that available online? I'm like, sorry, it's not. And I know we probably missed a few sales, but when we did try to put our most popular items online and sell them, we just didn't do enough of it to justify the labor, the effort, the hassle, so I shut it down. It's like, we'll revisit that later when we're bigger, have deeper pockets.
I'll give you
more
a
bandwidth.
secret. It's called ShopGrid. ShopGrid. Buffer puts it out. You can sell it through Instagram. It's an awesome It's
Man, to look
relatively cheap a month, and you can sell all the products as long as you have a link on your website. It can be a dead link or whatever. Yeah.
Honestly, whatever. At some point, I want to do something that's just brain dead for me, to where I just send X amount
for sure.
to them. They monitor. They tell me when they need
totally
more.
get it.
And then they send you a check.
And then they send me a check.
Yeah.
I mean, that right now, as busy as my life is, as fast as we're growing, is the only way that's even attractive to me.
How does your brand differentiate itself from 105 West, who we haven't interviewed yet? We luckily
They're good
you're our first, but you guys have 2, I would say, competing brands. I see
That's not a word we use.
Okay.
No. Well, all right,
mean,
that's good to know. I would
especially-
say, I guess my point is, I see the 105 West bear on a lot of cars, a lot of cars. But then I see the Burly Girly Beard updo on a lot of T-shirts. So yeah, maybe not compete, but I mean, you guys are in the same space.
We operate within the same space. We're all friends. We all do collaborative things together. The town comes together and does things all the time. We just recently had our Castle Rock Brew Fest under the stars.
Nice.
All 5 Castle Rock breweries were side by side in tents. That was great. But here's the way I look at it, and here's what I have said to every brewery owner here in town. It's like, I will go out of my way to create an equal playing field with you, but I'm also going to outwork you. So if I do better than you, it's not because I'm trying to put you down to put me up. It's because we're all going to get along, but I'm going to make you up your game because I'm going to work hard.
Is that a pain in the ass to deal with?
No, absolutely not. I prefer this approach.
Right.
You know, I don't think of fellow brewers that are brewing 10, 15, 20 barrels at a time. I don't think of those people as competitors. We're the David in this story. You know, the Goliath is already out there, and we've been chipping away for 25 years on the 97% market share that the macro lager crew has accrued. I personally, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Burly, this is just Reno saying, I spend my money on craft beer and independent craft beer. If you walk in our door, Independence Matters from the Brewers Association.
Yep, we're good friends with the Brewers Association,
right there
so
on
we
our
like
door.
to see that.
We think that independence matters, and I get that these guys borrowed money on top of money and they had to sell. I get it. You
Bound to happen.
at some point you got to make money, and I get that. But here in town, the biggest brewery in town is across town, Rock Yard. They've been around for 20 years.
Yeah.
And they do what they do, and we do what we do, and 105 does what 105 does, and Wild Blue does what Wild Blue does, and Iron Mule does what Iron Mule does. And there are plenty of craft beer drinkers in Castle Rock that are coming to drink craft beer. We don't have to compete with those people.
But you
All
can-
we have to do is be a community.
Yeah, for sure. No, I totally understand. And even I want to ask you, the macro beer, we often as kind of, I don't want to say that we're insiders in the way that you are, but I think we're kind of a smaller. We view the industry in ways that I think even the 90% of craft beer drinkers don't. Right?
Sure.
Just having conversations with guys like you and gals like you. So, what role do you view a macro brewery having in getting people in here? Because I've heard both sides, right? We want to take the market share, but also we need beer drinkers, right?
Absolutely. So yeah, I think a big thing in the craft beer industry right now is how to access demographics that we haven't traditionally accessed. Men 25 to 40 love craft beer.
Yeah.
Really?
That is our. Yeah, you guys didn't.
Wait,
know that?
what?
I think that's our demographic. I don't know. If there's any.
There are 4 men at this table right now.
Yes,
and
25 to 40.
none of them
For
look
sure.
none of them look anything like the others.
Yeah.
Exactly.
As far as macro drinkers, I don't judge those folks. If you're drinking good quality beer and you're enjoying it, hey man, good for you.
Right.
But most of the people that are in this industry, the craft beer industry, they want to focus on something that isn't the bottom line. They want to focus on something that isn't profit driven. I can make cheaper beer. I have the skill set to go and make one beer all the time that is the cheapest possible cost per ingredient, and we can make a bunch of money on that if we can compete with other people that are already doing that.
Yeah.
Instead, what I'd like to do is showcase our art. And you described us as artist and scientist, and I really think of beer brewing as my art. And George is a patron of my art. He brought me in. He pays me a good salary to do this, and it's really advantageous for me to be able to make money on the art that I create.
That 1-2 punch is kind of invaluable. I mean, that's the successful breweries that we've talked to. It's that partnership. It's sometimes a third, but I'm even thinking of something like Fiction, right? Where you've got a brewer who can be back there and she can do whatever she wants, right? And you got an owner who's in the front who's kind of managing the finances and all of that and giving that rope, as you said, right?
It's my job to make a product that's worth selling, and it's George's job to sell it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's the one that watches the bottom line. He's the one that makes us solvent. I'm the one that gives us a product that's worth this business being solvent.
But the relationship that you two have is so clearly authentic. It's kind of nice to see. I mean, oftentimes I think we've gone into breweries where you'll see the brewer on one side of the bar and the owner, the GM, whomever, on the other side. But you two, you're sitting right there. It's very clear that you guys are friends and you're hanging out. And I think that's got to add something to the quality product you're
Reno's
putting out.
been here for every single growth, transition, adjustment, whatever. And look, no place walks in with a vision and executes on that vision and never changes their path.
Right.
Everybody adapts, evolves, and you have to.
Yeah.
And we've gone through a lot together. I mean, we've been through the war, I feel like. And
He's just having you push it up there
not close
closer.
enough.
There
you go.
So sorry.
You're fine.
So
Don't worry.
The
is
big
not
thing for
NPR.
me to kind of take that same question you posed to him and turn it around. When I was homebrewing, my greatest joy was having friends over and them drinking my beer and watching the look on their face, just like when I showed them the logo recently. It's like, oh, that's cool. It's great when you hand them something that you brewed. Nobody wants to be there on a brew day, but everybody and their dog wants to be there when it's time to drink it.
Yeah.
And just, it's like a chef.
Yeah.
When your customer, friend, whoever it is, tastes your product and it's pleasing to them, it just fuels the fire to make you want to keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that makes total sense. What are you doing here? What's going on in these barrels?
Yeah, so we're pointing at barrels right behind us. We actually have a larger barrel program that we can immediately see. These are Chardonnay barrels. We produced a couple of beers in those. The beer in them now is the third turn in these Chardonnay barrels.
Okay.
It is a Belgian Golden Strong Ale at 40% Chardonnay wine grape juice.
That sounds
So
When is
almost
that
a vino
ready?
beer. Almost a vino beer. Secondary fermentation on Brettanomyces.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's probably going to be nice and funky. We just put that in 2 months ago.
Okay.
So it's probably a spring release. If it, my asshole response to anybody says, "When's that beer going to be ready in the barrel?" I say, "When it's ready."
Right.
You know?
When it tells you.
Yeah, when it says it's ready,
Right.
because we taste it, right?
Where do you get your yeast?
So most of our yeast comes from White Labs.
Okay.
I'm in a conversation with Imperial.
Okay.
But yeah, most of our yeast comes from White
Gotcha.
Labs.
Okay.
So yeah, we use pure pitches from White Labs.
Makes
Yep.
sense.
Well,
Okay.
these are the only 4 barrels you see. There's many, many more back
Yeah,
there.
we'll have to go back there and get a little tour after
why don't you
this.
give them a
Yeah,
breakdown
yeah.
of what those
So
are?
we have Cabernet red wine barrels,
Okay.
in which there is a Belgian double, secondary fermentation on Brett, aged on 5 types of raisins, module dates, and black currants, all tossed in flambéed rum.
What?
So
Holy shit, that's the only
back
thing I can
there
say.
over a camp stove and looked like Guy Fieri with the flames coming up.
Yes, yes,
That's
yes.
insane.
And dumped all that stuff into those barrels. So that's coming soon, probably in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you gonna-
probably
Fall
late
started like 36 hours ago, so
Probably
I'm
late
gonna hold.
October.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Please come back and see
We'll
us.
get some tasters and go pull a nail. How about that?
Yeah, we could maybe do
Oh
that.
yeah, you don't have to, but we're not.
After we wrap
We're not
up,
going to turn you down either.
I am happy to. We also have some Four Roses bourbon barrels that were first use for us. We did an Imperial Stout in them, and now there is a barley wine. And my rule about barley wine is brew it and don't look at it for a year.
I like
so
that.
the 27th of this month, it's actually coming up. 4 days away.
4 days, yep.
So Saturday, I'll probably taste it on Monday. I like to take the weekends off. Monday is the first time I'll taste that barley wine.
Wow.
And then we have a bunch of rye barrels from Lock and Company.
Oh,
which is
we
just
love
north of
those
us.
boys,
guys.
yes.
Yeah, we've
Good
done an
dudes.
interview with Lock and Company.
Good dudes.
Yeah.
Good dudes.
Those barrels were wet.
Where are they?
As a brewer, I've never picked up a wetter barrel. They knocked the bung out, dumped it over on their filter, rolled it over, knocked the bung back in, and rolled it down the dock to me. I was just waiting down there.
And you just caught it with
Yes,
the biggest,
just
fattest,
caught-
happiest
yes.
smile you've
Yeah,
ever
oh,
seen.
man. Put it in the Burly trailer and towed them on home. The first beer we did in those was our rye porter.
Okay.
Rye on rye.
Nice.
Very good beer. We did a
All right.
I like that, yeah.
and then we did an old fashioned, a play on the old fashioned cocktail. Lots of Angostura bitters and orange added to that beer. Very good back in the day. Right now, sitting in that is a 11% Imperial Stout in those wet rye barrels that have had that rye porter in them.
That sounds
So we have 20 barrels, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
20 barrels aging.
So, as
I'm
we
just
close
getting
up,
thirsty here.
yeah, exactly right. There's
I'm like-
Time to
I
taste
can't.
the barrel
I
aging.
can't focus. I can't
pulling a
focus.
nail was brought up. So,
Yeah.
Hand me a nail.
where can we find this if not here? Where can we find
Here
Burly?
is where you're going to find 99.9% of our beer.
Okay.
We definitely run the taproom model. Every once in a while, we throw some coffee from a local coffee shop in town that also serves beer. They get a keg. And then you'll
Nice.
find us at festivals that are within a 20 to 50 mile radius.
Okay.
Other than that, right here is where you need to be. We are a destination brewery.
Keeping it very local, keeping it very small for the moment. We're only 16 months in, it sounds like, here at Burly.
Almost 16.
Almost
Yeah,
16,
almost
so
16.
not even 16. What do the next 6 to 16 months look like? I mean, are you guys still trying to narrow down the identity? I mean, you want to just get it on autopilot for a little
I
while?
think we've got a pretty good identity. We have a new general manager who has got massive amounts of experience, and I brought him in just specifically to improve my quality of life because I have a full-time job and I do this. but also so he and Reno could work together to try to make subtle modifications. I mean, he's very well acquainted with the industry at large. I mean, he's traveled extensively, and everything that we're doing right now is filtered through Burly deserves better. No matter what it is, I want to grow. And whether my vision changes and takes on a completely different thing, I just want Burly to be the best it can be. So, yes, there's a sense of pride, but I'm also trying to be selfless about what this place becomes. And yes, it initially started as my vision, but at the end of the day, you know, it's like any kid. You give birth and they grow up and they kind of go their own direction. You're just trying to steer them and make sure they turn into the best person they can.
Keep them out of jail.
We appreciate that honesty. I mean, because I don't know that we would get that answer as much as we want. So, like,
It's usually a canned answer.
Yeah, everybody's got a
That's-
prefab. This is what we're doing.
Yep.
All right, well, let's go do a tour of the back. So, Reno, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
George, thank you so
Thanks for
much,
being
both
here.
of you.
Gentlemen, this
get
was
down
awesome,
to
yeah.
get down to Burly, because this place it might be a destination, as you said, but it's well worth the drive, and it's not that far.
And if you don't know what to look for, by the way, totally forgot to mention this. I spotted the Burly beard on the blue sign right before the
highway.
Wolfensberger exit.
really?
Yeah. And I drive this stretch a lot, recently a lot. And that's the first time I spotted it. And I wasn't even looking for it, so that's pretty awesome.
I mean, it took me 15
That was a tough
minutes,
decision.
so-
You look at marketing dollars and you're like, how many people, 200,000 people drive up and down that road every day?
Yeah.
It's like, by the time you look at the cost of doing that, it seemed reasonable to me.
Okay.
That would make
And-
sense.
Yeah.
And not only that, but anytime you make moves like that, people look at that, and I think it adds a level of legitimacy to who you are and what you do.
For sure.
So-
Absolutely.
Well, we'll get a picture of it on the way out of town.
We shall. All right, thank you, too. Let's go to our tour. Right?
Yeah, let's pull the nail.
Let's
Yes.
do it. All right,
Cheers,
thanks, guys.
gentlemen.
Cheers.
Thanks.
When they come to take